Well, we're going to get started. Thank you all for coming out tonight. For those of you who don't know who I am, I'm Steve Goldman. I'm one of the 3 school counselors here at Middleborough High School. Over here to my left is Andrew Swiderski. He is our newest counselor. He's been with us since the start of the school year. I work with the juniors Morrison through Z. Andrew works with EV through Morris, and Mrs. Byrne, who is not here tonight, was not able to make it, has the front end of the alphabet. Any questions that you have for any of us? The 2 of us will be around for a little bit after this presentation. For those of you who went to the part 1 college planning presentation, this is definitely not as long as the first one. So we'll probably be wrapped up in probably less than an hour, unless there's a lot of questions. And so we'll be available for some questions after also, and if you, and Mrs. Byrne said just to send her an email if you have any questions for her. So why don't we just get started here, and so this is part 2 of the college planning process, of what you should be doing between now and through the summer. As I told you in the first presentation, this is not a hard process, it's just a very detailed, and it's a long process and detailed, and you really do not want to wait until September to start this process. You will not enjoy your senior year if you do that. You're going to have a lot of work to do to make sure you're doing a thorough job, making big decisions, and spending lots of money. So that's why we started you back in January, almost a year ahead, so we could just break it down into steps and pieces. And between this time and this time, you do this, and this time and this time, you do that, and before you know it, you will be through it and ready to move on to the next phase of your life. So with all the workbooks that we have, and this workbook's going to be emailed out to all the juniors and parents later this week, along with the link to this presentation, which is being recorded in case you want to view it again. But with all the works, we have a timeline in the inside cover, which will cover us from now until the next workshop. So this one's going to run from April and all the way through September. When we come back, and we will have part 3, the nuts and bolts of applying to college, will be in September. We have not set a date for that. It's usually the 3rd or 4th week of September. And that's the last of the senior college planning workshops. If any time you want to go back and review any information from part 1, part 2, the links are on our website, or you can just go to METTV's website and they would have the information, the links there to review any of the workshops. So the timeline is just important information coming up now with SATs, with registration dates and deadlines and other events that are coming up along the way here. And then we get into the workbook, and we'll start right here with the school counseling staff and who's working with who and our contact information. We also have an intern that started with us at the beginning of this year, at the midpoint of this year, and is going to be with us all through next year also. That's Miss Atchison. She's in the counseling program at Bridgewater State University right now, and she is an excellent asset to have. She's been really helpful working with some of the students that need a little additional attention, and she's young and has been through this process more recently than any of us in the office, that's for sure. So she's a great resource for you also. So workshop one, this is just a little bit of a review of what we covered. And again, those workbooks are available online, and we did email them out to everybody that week of the workshop in January. Again, the updated testing information. How many of you have already registered for the SAT? Excellent. Wow. Very good. Very, very good. So we do recommend the May one. The deadline, I believe, for May has now passed to register. The reason we recommend May is because the scores will be in before we leave for the summer, and if you want to talk about them, we're available to you to do that. Not the worst thing in the world if you did not register for May, or if you had a conflict. There is an SAT in June, and we're on the ACTs right now. June. It happens to be the day of graduation here, so if you have siblings or children that are graduating that day, graduation's at 6 o'clock out on the football field. The SATs are at 7:30 in the building. So if you did want to take the take them. May 4th is the registration deadline. You register directly with College Board, not with us. All we're doing is loaning them our building and working for them that day. We have no access to add you, or if you miss the deadline, there's nothing we can do to get you in. It all goes through College Board. So you have to go to www.collegeboard.com. It costs $60. Try to avoid late registration because they're going to charge you $30 beyond that. And we do recommend that you take them twice. So if you take them once in the spring, August is a little bit early unless you really can't fit the October or November in, depending on when your application deadlines are. The regular decision deadlines don't begin until January 1st. If you are thinking about possibly applying early to a college, early action or early decision, which we'll talk about in a little bit, some of those deadlines begin as early as, most of them, November 1st, November 15th, December 1st, December 15th, these are the dates the colleges select. Not each one, they will pick one. So, for example, UMass Amherst is a November 1st early action deadline. They don't do early decision. So each college kind of does it a little bit differently, and we'll talk more about that in a little bit. But if you do have an early one, if you have a November 1st deadline, and there are a handful of schools, like maybe 2 or 3 that actually have October 15th deadlines, then you probably don't want to take the November SAT, you probably want to take the October. The scores can be sent in time. It's usually a 2 to 3 week turnaround for scores, plus the scores are not considered part of your application packet. So if the scores did come in after the deadline, that's okay. What makes the deadline for an application is the application and the application fee. As long as those 2 things are received by the colleges by their established deadline, then you have made your deadline. They're not going to hold you accountable for College Board, a teacher, a counselor, or any other organization out there that might be sending something on your behalf. We are a test center for November. If you are more comfortable and your deadline, college deadlines are a little bit later, then November is the one in the fall that we do host. You can take them anywhere, it does not have to be at your school. Just as a heads up, don't wait till the last minute if you haven't registered yet. So I can tell you right now, I had a student in my office last week who, just before vacation, who told me that she tried to register for the May SAT here, and apparently our test center was already full. So there's nothing we can do to get her, and that's a College Board issue. It has nothing to do with us. And the closest, we looked up other schools or other places that were offering it, the SAT. The closest one was about 30 miles away. It's just not the worst thing in the world, but you don't have to get up early and have to do all this traveling before you're taking a test of that magnitude. Okay, so that's the SAT. The ACT is just as a review of the other college entrance exam. Most colleges will accept either or nowadays. Years ago in the eastern part of the country, most of the colleges looked at SATs. If you go into school west of the Mississippi, they looked at ACT. It was just a marketing thing with ACT, which is located in Iowa, and College Board's located in Princeton, New Jersey. But 99% of the colleges will take either one. In fact, many colleges since COVID have gone test optional. Most colleges have gone test optional and are still test optional. Still take the test. You want to make sure you've got those under your belt, a couple of them, just in case. Or just in case you change your mind after this process, a year from now, you're thinking about transferring to a different school, you don't have to retake them. You already got the scores, and you're not going to have as much knowledge in your head as far as that test goes as you do right now while you're in high school. Okay, so that's the testing piece. Moving along, it's the timeline of when to do it. The CEEB code is how we are identified here at Middleborough High School. Every high school and every college has one of these codes. So we are not, to the colleges and to College Board, we are not Middleborough High School, we are 221405. So you have to know that number because you have to put that number on your registration when you are signing up to take the tests. Otherwise, or when you're submitting your test to colleges. Otherwise, we may not get your scores or the colleges may not get your scores. We don't send we have no legal right to send your SATs, your official SATs, to you. What makes them official, to the college, I should say, what makes them official is going directly from College Board to the college, and does not pass through our hands or anybody else's hands. So that's what an official test score is. So that's a piece that students tend to forget. And they'll come into our office like a month after the deadline saying, you screwed up, you didn't send my SAT scores. And it's not that we didn't want to send them, we can't. It's something that you have to take care of. All right, teacher recommendations. If you do only one thing before you leave for the summer, make sure you speak to a teacher and get a commitment from them to write a letter of recommendation for you for college. It's usually a teacher that you currently have as a junior. You don't want to go back to your freshman year with a teacher you had who you have not had ever since. College Board will say, that's great when you were in 9th grade, but what have you done recently? Now, if you had somebody in 9th or 10th grade and you're taking a class that you know only they teach as a senior, then that might not be a bad person to ask, because they can talk about the growth they've seen in you as a student over the course of the last 3 or 4 years. So teachers do not have to write letters of recommendation. It is an additional duty of theirs. If they choose to do it, they're doing it on their own time. You guys know who the popular teachers are here at the high school. And some of them will cap it and say, you know what, in order for me to write a well-thought-out, thorough letter of recommendation that's not garbage, and I had to rush through because I got 20 more behind me, some of them will cap it and say the first 20 students that ask are the ones I'm going to ask, or I'm going to write for. So beat your peers to the punch on this, and make sure if you have somebody that you really have in mind that you want to write, get that commitment. They give the teacher anything, you don't have to do anything with it right now, but just get the commitment from the teacher saying, yes, I would be more than happy to write that letter for you. Then we will show you later on the process. Later on, I mean, either at boot camp or in the fall, we will talk a little bit about how to make it official through SCORE and make sure you get all the information to them that they need to. But part of that, speaking of SCORE, is the teacher recommendation. There is a form that you need to fill out for your teacher, and it is this blue form right here, okay? So the top box with the arrow shows you how to access the forms that you need to fill out for your teacher, your counselor, and your school counselor. When you go to your profile page in SCORE, if you scroll all the way to the bottom where that arrow is pointing, you'll see 3 things: activity sheet, letter of information sheet for school counselor, and letter of recommendation information sheet for teacher. The teacher one looks like this. It's blue. The boxes will expand when you type in it. Just read it over and make sure that you are giving your teachers the information that they need to be able to write a well-thought-out letter of recommendation. With any of these forms, none of these need to be novels. The colleges do not want your teachers, your counselors, or anybody else that's writing on your behalf to write more than a 1-page letter. They have thousands and thousands of things to process and read, so they want it to be succinct, to the point, but they want it anecdotal. They want examples of things. They can read on an application that you got an A in a class and that you're proud of that A. What they want to know is, why are you proud of that A? What went into that A? Even if maybe it was a C. Maybe you were taking a math class. Math isn't your thing, but you had to take it to graduate, and you went for extra help, and you had a tutor, you did a study group, you did extra credit course. That's the stuff they want to hear about. So the general rule of thumb for any of these forms that you're filling out for your teacher or your counselor is to state what it is, and then just give 2 or 3 examples of why it was meaningful or significant. That's it. If you give your teachers and your counselors one-liners, we don't remember every single interaction, and we certainly don't know always what's going on up here in your head. And why, how hard you worked, or why it was meaningful to you. So you have to kind of give us that information to round out the letter. So we're capturing you as a person, and your passion, and your commitment to your academics and your extracurriculars. Okay. So for the teachers, it's just academics. Now, make sure that it is a teacher that you're asking to write a letter of recommendation. That's the most important recommendation in your application packet, is the academic letter. We have a principal here who is very popular with students, and a lot of students do ask Mr. Brannigan if he'd be willing to write a letter of recommendation. And that's fine, but that cannot be your primary letter of recommendation. Mr. Brannigan is a principal. He does not see you in the classroom. He has not seen the academic growth specific and directly like a teacher would. So that first letter, okay, and in most cases you only need one letter. More is not better when it comes to letters of recommendation. Again, the colleges, if they're even asking for them, a lot of schools are even getting away from those now. They don't want any extra stuff, okay? You know, I've had students in the past that have submitted the newspaper article they wrote for their school paper, or an art project. They submitted slides to it. They're not even majoring in art. They're not majoring in journalism or English. But it's just, and it's great that they have these great projects that they worked on. But if they're not asking for it and it's not directly related to the major or what, and all that, I recommend not sending it. And if you're just not sure, call the admissions office and ask them, should I send it? Your intentions are well and they're good, we get that, but you got to put yourself on the other side of that table, because those admissions counselors come January 1st after the applications start rolling in, have no life. And all they're doing is reading mounds and mounds and mounds of applications, letters of recommendation, and everything else that's been submitted, and you don't want to negatively influence them with something that you had no intention to negatively influence them. You're just saying, whatever, read it, don't read it. You don't want to upset them and have them say, geez, here we go again, they didn't follow the directions. So always just ask the question before you submit, okay? Same thing with testing, more is not better. Like I said, recommend 2 times with the SATs or the ACTs. If you're taking the SATs twice, don't take them a 3rd time if you're not happy with your score. Switch to an ACT. It's a different style test. Usually you score comparably from one to the other, but every now and then people may score differently from one test to the other. But taking the SATs 3, 4, 5 times is not recommended. It is not good use of your time or your money, for that matter. And again, always talk to your counselor if you have any questions. Okay, so we talked about all that. The school counselor rec is similar to the teacher, but it is longer. Why is it longer? Because we write the all-round letter of recommendation. Your teacher is talking about academics, and we are talking about you as a whole person. So we're going to be writing about your extracurricular activities in school and out of school. So it's important that, again, it does not have to be a novel. This green one right now is 4 pages before you type a single letter on it. By the time you're done with it, it really shouldn't be much longer than 4, maybe just touching onto a 5th page. If you're, again, you know, you get out of it what you put into it. You give us one-liners, and it's something that we're not familiar with, then we can't speak anecdotally about it. If it's, you know, so again, state what it is, give 2 or 3 examples of why it was meaningful or significant to you, so we get a sense of who you are and how we can transfer that information along to the colleges. So that is the second form. The third form is the activity sheet. The activity sheet serves 2 purposes. One, it's additional information for the school counselor. It also can act as a resume, in a sense, for you, just to keep track of all the things that you've done. This is something that we would recommend you, if you haven't started it already, and I already know that some people have started because they've emailed me and asked questions about it. But this is one of those things that you don't want to sit down at the end and say, now what is it I did 4 years ago? And you got a deadline ticking away and all that. You want to make sure you start, at least fill in the basic stuff. If you know you've played football for 3 years and you're going to play it your 4th year, get it on there, okay? Then over the summer when you're doing something and all of a sudden you're like, oh, you know what, I didn't add this to it. Just go back in and add it in, and just keep doing that until it's time to hand those things into your counselor into your teachers, okay? So the teacher does not get this one. Again, the teachers should be focusing on the academics. The counselor will be talking about the all-around stuff and showing you as a whole person and why you'd be a great member of their community. And there's a sample of how to fill this form out, how to word things in the back of the workbook. Actually, I can show you that right now. It is right here. So this kind of shows you how to list things to give yourself credit. Now, if you've done something for 3 years and you know you're going to do it, let's say you play softball, you're filling this out in August of between your junior and senior year, but you know you're going to play softball in the spring of your senior year, check it off, put it on there, okay? Because then the college, if you don't, college is going to say, why'd you quit after 4 years? So make sure that you're giving yourself credit for the things that you've done. Primarily, we're looking for the last 4 years of what you've done here at the high school. If you did the Walk for Hunger once when you were in the middle school, colleges aren't really interested in that. If you did the yearbook once when you were in middle school, but you never did it again after that, they're not really interested in that. So on the next page, we have samples of in-school and out-of-school activities that you might want to think about and see if any of these fit. And again, don't shortchange yourself. We purposely added this page because students would, every time we were meeting with them, they would just, do you work? No, I don't work. Do you babysit? Yeah. Well, babysitting is a job with a lot of responsibility. So we want to make sure that you're not forgetting. Also, long-term things. So if you have been involved in something like Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, dance, piano lessons, that type of stuff, horseback riding. Some students have been doing that since they were very young. That shows a very long-term commitment. So certainly you should include those types of things. College interview. There's not a lot of colleges that do interviews anymore. So if you happen to come across one that says, sure, we'd love to talk to you, take advantage of it. Do not be intimidated by it. It is just as much an opportunity for you to find out more about them as it is for them to find out about you. Okay, so you have to remember that while maybe it might be your dream school to get into, it doesn't put you necessarily at a disadvantage of will they take me? You're going to find out if this place is going to give you what you're looking for. Okay, from the outside, they all look great. How many people watched March Madness last month? Huge marketing piece for colleges. Huge. And it's not just about the sports, and it's great, it's about raising money for the program and all that, but it's also one of their biggest marketing ploys that's out there. But you have to find out by visiting the campuses, asking questions, interviewing if they have eligibles. You look great in the pictures. You look great on TV. Yeah, you got national champion basketball team. What do you got for me? Okay. When I walk away after 4 years and $100,000, $200,000, whatever it's costing nowadays to go to college, what am I gonna have? Am I gonna get the same education for $200,000 that I could get at another school for $80,000? It's important to find that out. Just because a school has name recognition doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to give you a better education. And you got to find out what the best value is. Okay, it's wonderful to be able to put Harvard at the top of your resume, but if it's not going to pay off in the long run for you, maybe Boston College is a better choice. Okay, maybe UMass Amherst is a better choice. Maybe Framingham State's a better choice. It's a very individual process for each student. I can tell you right now, the state colleges in Massachusetts originally were all founded as teacher colleges. Okay, so if there's anybody here that's thinking about going into education, the ones that have been doing it the longest, Framingham State has been doing it for 170-something years, and Bridgewater is 1 year behind them. Two oldest public schools in the United States. They've been pumping out teachers longer than anybody else. You will not get a better education anyplace else. You might get brand name recognition, but you'll also get a big price tag that goes along with it. And you have to remember, you're going to college, to get a degree, so you can get a good job, so you can earn money, and you can live a certain lifestyle. And you have to ask yourself, when will that lifestyle come with, when I have to pay back all those loans at the end of the day? So it really is important to kind of figure out what the best bang for your buck is. And the brand name school isn't always the best deal. Now, if they're willing to take you and give you a load of financial aid, when I say financial aid, I'm not talking about student loans, I'm talking about scholarships, money you don't have to pay back, maybe it is the best deal for you. So there's a lot of work that has to go into this and figuring out what's going to get you to where you want to be. Okay. So the interview, take advantage of that interview, really important. If you want to go over interview questions with your counsel, we'll be happy to do that also, just let us know. We give you some sample questions, things to think about. You got to remember that things are going to be different, especially if you're living away at college. Mom and dad are not going to be there with you. You're going to have to start to learn to do a few things on your own. You're going to have to, I remember my car broke down, and it sat in a parking lot for like a month. My roommate looked at me. He goes, what are you going to do? I said, I don't know. My dad always took care of that stuff for me. He goes, back in the day, go to the phone book, look up the auto mechanics, and find somebody in the area that can tow that thing and fix it for you. So you're going to have to learn to do those types of things on your own also, okay? And there's just things that you haven't had to think about before, you know? When you're visiting campuses, see how, ask them how well lit the campus is. Is there a campus shuttle or bus service there at night if you have a night class? You know, safety is an important piece wherever you are. And I'm not trying to scare anybody with that, but there's crime everywhere. There's crime in Middleborough. There's crime everywhere, okay? And sometimes people target areas where they know people aren't thinking about those things. So lots of questions to think about and to ask to make sure that you are putting yourself in the best academic and personal situation that you can. Application and the admissions process. Let's start getting organized now. Dedicate a spot in your home. If you have an extra room, a spare office, or a dining room table you don't use that often, and start setting up folders or do it on the computer with spreadsheets. I've seen all kinds of different things from different families, and just start keeping track, because everything's going to start to merge together, and you're not going to remember which school was this or which school was that. And just start putting things in, and just start eliminating schools, put them in a separate pile, and say, nope, these schools I'm done with. So a quick overview of the process right here. We're not going to get into too many details about that because that's really part 3 of the college planning process. When you're looking at developing that list of schools, there's 3 categories: realistic, stretch, and a safety or a backup school. The realistic school is one, when you look at the numbers, you pretty much have what they're asking for. If not, you pretty much have what they're asking for, and it looks like there's a better chance than not you're going to get into that school. A reach or a stretch is you have most of what they're asking for, and you want to give it a shot and see how it all plays out. And the safety or backup, in addition to no questions asked, without a doubt, you have beyond what they're looking for. There's other reasons to have a safety or a backup plan. The reason for that, if you see, like I said, the academic requirements are the big ones. Financial considerations. Sometimes you get into that school and you just, after the financial aid stuff comes through, you can't afford it. You need to make sure, but you want to go to school, you need to know where you want to go and what you want to do. So you gotta go to plan B. Proximity to home. I had a student many years ago whose father passed away unexpectedly. She was going to go to school. She was looking at schools in Colorado and Arizona, and got into them. She was an only child. It was a very close family, just the 3 of them. And she ended up, her mom was having a hard time with it. She was having not as hard a time, but it was still tough, but she wanted to be a little bit closer to mom. So she ended up going to her backup school, which was UConn, which is still a really good school. It's just, she decided, you know what, I don't need to go all the way across country. This is only a couple hours from home. It's like, I can get home and see mom and all that. So make sure that you're covering all your bases. So it's not always just, the the academic piece. Sometimes life gets in the way of things sometimes. These are the things that the colleges are looking for, the criteria. Your courses. Your senior courses are important. Okay? The colleges are not looking at you guys as cruising to the finish line and winding down your high school years. They're looking at you as gearing up for college. So it's really important that you show them that your schedule is just as strong, if not stronger, than it has been. Okay? That doesn't mean you go crazy and say, well, I'm going to take all AP courses now. If you're not an AP student, don't do that. That can backfire on you and cause other problems along the way. But at least keep the strength of your schedule at the level that it currently is at. Your recommendations are weighted. What your interests are and what kind of community member you're going to be, and some of that will come out in your essay. If they're looking at test scores, that'll play a role. Your essay and how you express yourself. The essay is not just a writing sample to see how well you write. In fact, that's the least of it. I mean, you don't want to have a lot of errors and stuff, but the essay is a way for you to express, this is me on paper, here's my application, here are my activities and all my stuff, but this is who I am. This is what else you're going to get from me. These are my values and my beliefs and that type of stuff. Your rank and your GPA obviously will play a role in that if they interview. And then if you've received any awards, recognitions, then extracurriculars you may be involved with. So everything is kind of a piece to the puzzle. So the colleges aren't going to go down the checklist and say, good, 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 good. Oh my God, look at that, throw that application away. Everything is a piece. Until every piece is in, they don't have the full picture of you. Okay, so for students that might be receiving special ed services or support through a 504 accommodation plan, if college if you're concerned about college and whether or not you can have or will have supports, every college does have some sort of a skills center with free tutoring and staff available to assist you. There are also several schools out there, 2 in our area, very close by, Curry College and Westfield State, that have specific programs. You actually apply under a separate application to those schools, and they actually will have a specific counsel that works with special ed students, or students that have had academic needs in the past, and make sure they put the supports in place with the hopes that by the time you're a senior, all those supports have been weaned away, and you're just flying because they've continued to teach you what you've been learning here at the high school. So see your counselor if you would like to identify some of those schools and look into some of them. But I can tell you those 2 programs, Curry's and Westfield's, are fantastic. I've talked to former students that have graduated, gone through and graduated, and best decision they've made, they said. So the different types of applications we started to talk about. So early action. Early action applications are non-binding. You can apply to as many colleges as you would like early action. The deadlines usually run between November 1st and November 15th. And again, each college will pick which date they want to, December 15th. Each college will pick which date they want to use as their specific deadline. Early decision, same deadlines. It's a legal binding contract that you are signing, your parents are signing, your school counselor is signing. You may only apply to one college early decision. If you get in, that's where you're going. You're not going anywhere. And they mean business, and they talk. I had a student that many years ago that applied to Babson and Bentley early decision, and she was being heavily recruited to play tennis also. Got into both. She didn't tell me or anybody else that she had applied early decision. I happened to know the tennis coach at Babson's, a friend of mine, and he called me asking about her because he had her on campus with the team for a visit, and he was trying to expedite the application. And when they did their check with Bentley, there's a database of early decision, and they found out, both colleges found out, she applied early decision to both. Both of them rescinded their decisions and the opportunity to play tennis for them. So You're not going to find a school counselor around the world that likes early decision. You're not going to find out about financial aid until well after you get that early decision letter. Things change. I've had students that for 3.5 years were adamant they were going to go to this school, this school, this school, and then senior year after visiting and doing other things, going through the process, ended up going someplace else. So you don't want to lock yourself in with early decision. I mean, it's your choice, but we would always recommend to keep your options open. And like I said, the schools don't have both. They usually have one or the other. Priority is a non-binding. It's similar to early action. Usually it's very specific to an individual college. Anybody here thinking about nursing? So a lot of nursing programs have priority deadlines, and if they don't, you still want to get your application in early. There is a lot of people that want to go into nursing, and there just are not enough seats in these programs to take everybody that wants to go into nursing. So that's one of them that usually has a priority deadline. Regular decision, January 1st through April 15th. So each college, again, the college will pick which day, the 1st or the 15th of the month, that they want to use as their deadline. Again, it's non-binding. It's just the regular process. You just get processed with the whole group of people. And then there's rolling admissions, and there's no deadline. So rolling admissions, there's positives and there's negatives. The positive is there's always a place to apply to. So if your search doesn't work out the way you had hoped it would have worked out, you still have options. The problem with rolling admissions is they don't wait, since there's no deadline. So with all the other ones, once the deadline hits, then they process the whole group together. Okay. With rolling, they don't do that. If you send your application in October, they're going to read it, make a decision. Okay. If you send your application in January, let's just say you send it in January 1st, which is when the regular decision deadlines begin. If that college is already filled up, they've already filled up. Okay. So there's kind of a good and a bad to that. The next page has some important information you're going to need to complete your applications. This is all information from the school. You're going to need to know what our code number is. You're going to need to know what our address is, our phone and fax, the correct spelling of Mr. Brannigan's name, the correct spelling of your school counselor's name, and our contact information. Please make sure that you are typing the email addresses correctly, because a lot of times that's how we get notified that we have to do something for you and send something out. If you put up the wrong email address in, you may never get that email. Your class size will be finalized when you return in September. And the years you've attended Middleborough High School were September 2020 through June 2024. So make sure you're not putting yourself in the 5-year plan when you're putting the correct dates. And then again, that's if you transferred here from another high school, then you just got to make sure that you're putting the correct dates that you're at that high school and at our high school. And your anticipated graduation date is June 1st, 2024. So you're going to need all that information to fill out your applications. Your essay. Essay is one of the most significant parts of the application package. It offers college a glimpse into the person behind the transcript. So we talked a little bit about this already. And the nice thing about the essay, here's some tips for writing the essay. The nice thing is the common application. This common application is one application, and there's about 1,000 colleges that subscribe to this one application. That means you only fill out one application, you only write one essay, and you just click a button to submit. Most of the schools our students apply to are on the Common App. You may come across a school you're applying to that is not using the Common App, which means you have to go to their website and you have to click on admissions, and then usually you'll see first year student or application, and you can download the application and set up an account directly with the college. You don't get any bonus points. If the college uses both the Common App and they have their own application, you don't get bonus points using their application. If the colleges didn't like the Common App, they wouldn't subscribe to it and put their name on it. Okay, so maximize your time also. The nice thing that we didn't have is, when we were doing this, is these are the 6 different essay prompts on the Common App. So you can pick any one of these and you can start kind of roughing out an essay if you'd like to do that. And if you don't like 1 through 6, 7 is a topic of your own choice. So you don't need to be writing anything right now, but I would say start thinking about experiences where you learn something about yourself, an obstacle or a challenge you've overcome, a person you admire. And if you're going to write about a person you admire, make sure that you always bring it back to you. I have a friend of mine who was an admissions counselor at Boston College for years, and he used to tell me he used to read these wonderful essays about grandma and grandpa, what wonderful people they were, and they'd gladly accept grandma and grandpa to their school, but the student never brought it back to themselves and talked about, as a result of my experience, these are my values, my beliefs, and how I choose to live my life. So always bring it back to yourself if you're writing about another person. Okay, so moving along, college application boot camp. So Middleborough High School hosts a college application boot camp in August. We've been doing it now for about 8 years, I think. The boot camp is an opportunity to sit down with an English teacher and write an essay, work with them one-on-one to rewrite and redraft and keep going over this until you have a nice clean essay. It's a 2-hour, it's a 5-day workshop for 2 hours each day. And one of the days will be spent with your school counselor, where we will open up a Common App account with you. Please do not open up a Common App account before boot camp. If you do it now, you're going to be using this year's application and not next year's application. But the application is usually available August 1st, but please, if you're going to go to boot camp, do not fill out the app, do not open up an account. We will do that with you. The problem with doing that ahead of time is sometimes parents do it, and then the student doesn't know it, and the student goes in, and they use their name, and the Common App won't allow them to set it up because it has somebody else using that name already. Or you forget what your password is, or we can't do much as far as helping you with Common App. We don't have access to your accounts on that. It's a private company. So we will take you step by step through that process, and we will help you open it up. Make sure that you save your password in your phone so you don't forget it. And we will go line by line through that application. And when you finish boot camp on that Friday, you will be 95% complete with this whole process. So for you folks that are out there that are going to be taking all those AP classes next year, or have a fall sport that you're playing, this is just one less thing you need to worry about, and it's a big thing. Nobody likes coming in the summertime. We're not particularly fond of it either. However, and we're here longer than you because we do double sessions, because there's a workshop in the morning and a workshop in the afternoon. But it will make your lives a lot easier. It will make our lives a lot easier too, because now when we sit down with you in September and October to go over all your stuff individually, an hour-and-a-half meeting has now been cut down to 20 minutes. So it's less time out of the classroom for you, and just, again, you're ahead of the game. So you talk to any senior that's gone through the boot camp, and they will all tell you it is well worth the time and the money. Money, how much is it going to cost? $75 for boot camp. That is a bargain. There are other places out there in the summer that will charge them $300, $400, $500 to do those things for you. And you're going to get personalized attention from English teachers that know what the curriculum is here, and from your own counselor that has been tracking you and following you for the last 4 years. In the bold here, it says, be familiar with the Common App essay prompts before you go into boot camp, so you go in knowing what you want to write about. The Monday session is with your school counselor. That's a 3-hour session, but your application will be complete after that. If you bring in in the information that we are asking you to bring in right here. You should have a narrowed down list of colleges, not your final list, but it should be narrowed down to a reasonable number at that point. We recommend applying to 3 to 6 colleges. If you do your homework, that is a very realistic number of schools. You gotta remember the application fees can go anywhere from $10 to over $100. I would say on average, they're probably about $75 per application. So it's a lot of money to roll out with no guarantee that they're gonna, that's just so they read your application, so guarantee you're gonna get in. You'll need to bring your social security number with you, because if you're planning on applying for financial aid, that is how you will be identified. We will not see it. You will plug that into the Common App, and it'll just show up as a bunch of X's when you so no one will ever see the social security number. Bring in the name, so you want to bring names and addresses of other high schools you may have attended, list of courses that you've completed at the college level, including dual enrollment courses, and the dates that you attended, and a list of honors that you've received over the years, academic and personal. You need to bring family information too for the application. So we're going to need your parents' names, full names, first, middle, last, email address, occupation, so you need to know where they work and what they do, their education levels, where they attended college or a trade school, the number of degrees they have, the years they attended, and then your siblings, we need their name. You're going to need their names, their ages, their education levels, whether they're in elementary school or middle school or high school or college, any degrees they have received, when they started college, when they ended college. So all that information needs to go into the application. So if you can bring all that with you to boot camp, you will be way ahead in getting this all done. So down below on this chart here, there's going to be four different groups that we're going to be setting up to do this. The first group, if you sign up for the first group, that's going to meet from 8 to 11 on Monday and 8 to 10 for the rest of the week of August 7th through the 11th. Group 2 is also is the same week, and that's meeting from 12 to 3 and 12 to 2. Group 3 is the following week on the 14th, and Group 4 is later on that day. So if you have part-time jobs or family vacations or whatever, maybe this will help you kind of plan around which workshop you're going to go to. So it is recommended you go to all 5 days, but you need to stay within your group. You can't do Monday with Group 1 and then Tuesday with Group 3 and so on and so forth. $75 per student. That payment goes to Mrs. Holmgren in the main office via cash or money order payable to the town of Middleborough, no personal checks. And the deadline to register and pay is July 14, 2023. If financial issues are of concern to you, please speak with your counselor, and we will see if there's anything that can be arranged for you in that regard. And if you want to register, you can just go right to this link right here, and that'll let you register right online for the program. Mark your calendars. We have the Boston National College Fair field trip next week, May 3rd. We're going to probably be leaving around 7:30. We'll be back around 1:30. The cost is $10. Permission slips are available in the school counseling office. The date to register is tomorrow. That is a hard deadline because we have to order buses. We have not had a lot of people sign up so far. We usually take 3 bus loads. I don't even think we have a half a bus filled right now, but we have to get the buses requested by Friday. So this has to be taken care of tomorrow. So just go and see Mrs. Pont in the school counseling office, and she will you also have to scan this QR code in our office, which once you scan that will register you with the Boston National College Board, because when you get there, that's how you're going to get information. The colleges don't give out a lot of paper anymore at these college fairs. You'll take your phone, if you're registered, you just scan it on their tables, and they'll send you the information electronically. No need for people anymore. College planning night for seniors and their families, you said earlier, is going to be in September, probably the third or fourth week of September. Financial aid, we do not do financial aid workshops specifically here anymore since COVID. Those companies have kind of stopped doing that. What's happening now is they're offering a bunch of online financial aid workshops that anybody from anywhere can just sign up and go to. As we get those dates and times, we'll send that information out to you. So there's nothing you can do about financial aid right now anyways. That is a fall process. Right now, you want to focus on researching schools, narrowing the list. In the summer, you want to focus on the boot camp and getting the applications done, and getting all the forms filled out for your teachers and for your counselor. The financial aid form will not be available until October 1st. The federal form, the FAFSA form, it will be available for next year, will be available on October 1st, so there's nothing you can do about it right now. Scholarship information night is usually the week before February vacation, it's usually that Wednesday. And that will be for all the local scholarships, so that will be when the book is launched. What will happen in the meantime is as stuff is sent to us from outside organizations, we will just email it directly to the students and the parents. And you can apply on your own. If you need something from us, just ask. If you need any transcripts, those have to be requested through Mrs. Pont, our secretary, because she tracks all the transcripts that get sent out. So you can just ask her, you can just talk to her directly, and she will take care of that for you. The scholarship booklet that I mentioned is all the local sponsors in this area that coordinate through us. We're kind of the clearinghouse, we put it all together in one book, and then we launch that. We usually have about 4 or 5 weeks to complete the applications and submit them to the sponsors, and then there's a scholarship night during senior week of the senior year, and that's when students will be invited if they're receiving any of those scholarships. National College Signing Day is May 1st. That is the last day to put your deposit down at the college that you wish to attend. And that will lock you in for a spot at that school. Now, if you are planning on living on campus, I would not wait until May 1st, because housing is different from just being accepted to the school. The sooner you get your paperwork sent into the Residence Life and Housing Office at the college, the sooner you will get a guaranteed reserve spot and hopefully not be tripled or quadded. Because what they do is they date stamp everything that comes in, so the people that wait to the very end, because they overbook, the colleges overbook the roads like the airlines do because they don't want empty beds. So what ends up happening is if you submit your stuff in August, there's a good chance you're going to be in what they call triple, a room that was designed for 2 people, you get 3 beds and 2 of everything else, 2 closets, 2 bureaus, 2 desks. Sometimes they give you a discount for that, but it's not, if any of you have been in a dorm room recently, it's not a real comfortable living situation. Sometimes they're quad rooms, they're usually a little bit bigger, but still. So the deadline for that is a little bit different from the deadline to get your spot at the college. Senior week will be roughly the week of May 28th to 31st. We're rolling it right into graduation, and then graduation June 1st. So that is it for this presentation. We'll open it up to questions.
I have a question. From the administration date from the SAT, how quickly will we get those scores back?
So the question is from the administration of the SATs, how quickly will it be before you get the scores back? College Board has really sped up the process. I would say a safe bet is anywhere between 2 and 3 weeks before you get your scores back. And usually they don't mail them anymore. It's just you have to check your College Board account and they'll be posted in there.
So should we wait for those results before we register for a possible second test, or can we just register for a second test?
You can wait. If you look at the registration deadlines, there's plenty of time between, because did you register for a spring one by any chance?
We'll register for May.
Okay, you registered for May. So the next one you take at the earliest, I wouldn't recommend taking them back to back, so I wouldn't take a June one. Because you do want to maybe look at the scores, and if there's an area that maybe you want to do a little practice work in, then, you know, you can do that over the summer, and then maybe take in October or November. Other questions?
I have another question.
Yes, go ahead.
Do you do mock interviews? I'm only asking because even though a lot of colleges don't do interviews for athletics, when they contact us, it becomes an interview. Because they ask questions beyond just the sports. They ask about the overall person. So I think we could benefit from some mock interviews possibly. So I didn't know.
That's usually on an individual basis. If students want, I've sat down with students in the past, doesn't happen often, but I do sit down if a student wants to, and we'll go over questions to expect. I mean, the question that trips everybody up the most, which should be the easiest question to answer, is tell us a little bit about yourself. It's not a trick question. They just want to know about you and who you are, what your interests are, and it's not, are you an A student? It's like, what kind of student are you? But what are your interests? What are your hobbies? What do you like? What are your goals? There's a little bit about who you are, but certainly we can, we have resources and materials, and we can take some time to kind of go over things. Sometimes it's a little awkward for the students to be in that situation, knowing it's not real and all that. But if they're willing to do it, that's fine. We're open to that. Is there a question over here?
Yeah, is Middleborough a test site for the June SAT?
Is Middleborough a test site for the June SAT? No, we're not. We're only a test site for the May and the November. But you, as I said earlier, you can take the SATs any place that you want to. It's nice to take it in your own school though, because you're familiar with it. Yes.
Beyond the scholarship info night in February, can you speak to applications over the summer, national scholarships or scholarship services?
So other than the scholarship information night in February, what other scholarships could you be looking at over the summer?
Applying over the summer, but I've also read about scholarship services, the pros and cons. I don't know if you recommend any of them.
We have a list of, on our website, there's a list of different, FastWeb is probably the most popular one. So I would probably start with FastWeb. But on our website, and we're going to apologize because we've been asking for them to update our website forever and a day. There is a section, there's a lot of stuff on there that needs to come off, but there's a section of links for different scholarship searches. Some of them are now dead sites, but some of them are still active. So any of those that are on there are legit. So that's where I'd probably start. I wouldn't pay a service to search for you. The whole purpose of this process is to get money, not to give money. Okay? Right there.
Will there be any other college fairs besides next week?
Will there be any other college festivals next week? Probably not until the fall. Okay, that's probably the last of them at this point in this region. I know when we come back in the fall, we will get a list of regional college fairs from the Northeast Consortium of College Admissions Counselors. Sometimes they're as close as Stonehill College or UMass Dartmouth. Sometimes they might be a little bit further out. Over here.
How local are the colleges at the college fair? Like, are they all around here, or are they all around?
How local are the colleges at the college fair? There's going to be over 400 colleges at the college fair from around the world. So there's going to be a lot of them there. My recommendation is if you have not started looking at schools, get on SCORE before the college fair next week and start doing a search of location, how far away from home you want to go, majors that you might be interested in. If you have a cap on costs, and I wouldn't let the cost be a factor right now, it's certainly a very big piece, but I would also say let the financial aid process take its place too and make that final decision at the end. But you can plug in a whole bunch of different criteria. Mr. Swiderski actually has been doing this in the workshops. What are some of the other criteria we have? Location, major,
If there's ROTC, if,
athletics.
yeah, athletics, like what division of the sport that you're looking to play, or just intramural.
There's a lot of them in there, okay? And I wouldn't get too specific, because if you sit there, when we use Naviance, and I'm sure it gets in school, we're still learning score ourselves, but for extracurriculars, they had rodeo. If you check that off, pretty much any school in the Northeast is going to be eliminated. I would only check off, if you're an athlete and you've enjoyed it, but you don't, you'd be perfectly happy playing intramural or getting together and throwing a ball around with your friends outside. I wouldn't check off that sport, because if it's not being offered at the NCAA level, it'll eliminate that college from your cert. So I would only put in the stuff that is most important and most significant to you. And then you will get a list of schools, a narrowed down list, because there's thousands of them out there. And then when you go to the fair, my recommendation would be go to the colleges that are the furthest distance from where you live. Okay? Because you can always do a trip down the road to Stonehill or to UMass or to Bridgewater or even into Boston to some of the schools. But to get out to the University of Vermont, which is a 4-hour drive, might not be as easy for you. Okay? So at least, I kind of work my way back in. If you're interested in UMass Amherst, I'm going to tell you right now, UMass Amherst will have probably 8 to 12 booths. It's like I set up like a trade fair, okay, a trade show. They're going to have about 8 to 12 booths, and the line will go down the aisle and out into the lobby. They used to have it at the old World Trade Center, and it went out to Northern Ave. The line. UMass is close enough to do a road trip, okay? Don't waste your time. You will kill the short amount of time that we have there in that line when you could have hit probably 5, 6, 7 other schools in the meantime, okay? Yes, sir.
So how is SCORE different than Naviance? I know one of the things that we had challenges with Naviance was when you entered your criteria, and if you had a higher GPA or things like that, things would drop out of your scores because it was it considered it a safety school, or, so I know when we were looking, there was things we wouldn't find that we knew should have been there, and we had to go and uncheck or look in the match criteria because it was a safety school.
Right. So the question is, what are the differences between Naviance and SCORE, and and also as far as the accuracy of the searches also. Nothing is an exact science. We'll start there, okay? And any of these programs are designed to, and again, that's why we say don't get too specific. And I actually, when I did Naviance, and I love Naviance. I've been on board with Naviance since it came out. And when we were talking about moving to SCORE, I was just like, oh, wait a minute. Naviance has not improved over the last 20 years. Some might say it's kind of gone down a little bit since it was bought out by another company. SCORE had the benefit of learning from all of Naviance's mistakes. SCORE is much more user-friendly. We actually got our access to it as counselors before we went through the training with their.
Excuse me, I'm just a little confused with the two. This is the interrupt.
Okay.
The two things,
Mhm.
SCORE and Naviance.
Yes.
What is it for? Is it to look for college?
The college and career search engines.
Okay.
Okay, and each student here gets their own account.
Thank you.
Okay. SCORE, we were maneuvering through SCORE without any instruction whatsoever, and we were finding things, which was not the case with Naviance. So it is much more user-friendly for this group of people that are looking, these students that are looking at colleges that have grown up with technology. I think they're going to find it incredibly easy. We just ran the class list for the seniors to see who has updated the SCORE accounts with acceptances, wait lists, denials, and that type of stuff, and who has also indicated that they've enrolled in schools. And it is amazing how much of that data has already been plugged in by the students with Naviance, because it was not easily accessible and it was just not something that they would see right in front of them. We would be chasing kids literally up to graduation day trying to get all the information finalized in our databases. There's always going to be work that needs to be done as far as continuing to narrow the list down. I know when I used Naviance, I didn't put in percent accepted in the search because of what you were talking about, because percent accepted can be misleading. If you have a school that only has 800 students, it's going to have a lower percentage of acceptances than a school that takes in 30,000. So there always is going to be a little bit of legwork in there to kind of fine tune and tweak things and everything. But that was a good question.
And sorry, just to add one more thing too, when it comes to score, one of those filters that we were just discussing is you can actually select to what degree of acceptance rate that school has. Is it a very competitive school? Is it a school that accepts roughly 90% plus? Plus, when you go into each school on score, you can look at something called the scattergram, where you can actually see where other students that went to Middleborough High School and applied to this school, based off their GPA and SAT score, if they were accepted, denied, deferred, so forth. So it's another added resource that's...
The scattergrams are great. We use them. Naviance had scattergrams too. It makes our jobs as counselors a lot easier, because I never want to be that counselor who's going to say you'll never get into that school. Sometimes when they visualize it and they say it looks like a weather map almost. Okay, you have a certain color of of X's or circles or whatever that are red, which means the students didn't get in. Then the next might be yellow, which means they were waitlisted. Then the next one would be green, which means they were accepted. And it's only Middleborough High School students, so it's telling you how do students coming out of this high school fare at a school like that. And then that student, based on either PSAT or SAT scores, whichever one is most recent, and their GPA are plotted right on there. So you can see, I'm in the red, I'm in the yellow, I'm in the green. So that helps tremendously as far as getting that visual of saying, okay, you know what, I'm in the right ballpark here. Yeah.
Does that use a weighted GPA or a non-weighted GPA? Because that makes a difference.
Middleborough uses a non-weighted GPA. However, that is changing next year. We are moving to a weighted GPA to go along with the weighted rank. So that, and we aligned it when we started having these conversations about this earlier at the beginning of this year. We aligned our GPA scale. We've tweaked that a little bit too, to match the state college and university scale, because the majority of our students do end up applying to those schools also. And we said, how do you recalculate, because every college recalculates GPA, and they weight things the way they want to weight them, okay? So we said, well, what do you consider an honors A? Is it a 4.3? Is it a 4.0? What is it? So that's how we did it, to try to put it at least more in line with those schools. So I think I know what's going to happen now is it's not going to be as disappointing to our students. I think a lot of times, and I've been advocating for this for a long time, students are looking at these GPAs when they're doing their college search and they're like, why should I even bother applying? Because they're looking at their unweighted GPA. And I'm like, apply. When they recalculate, you'll probably be in the ballpark for them. So I think we're going to see kids applying to more competitive schools now, because they're going to feel more confident based on what they're looking at. And again, we meet with each senior individually over the course of the fall and review where they're at that point and what schools they have on their list. And if we have concerns about, maybe there's not a safety school or there should be another realistic in there, we will make those recommendations to them and tell them, we should be looking at another. And if they want to do it on their own, that's fine. If they want to do it with us, we're more than happy to do that with them. Other questions? All right, well, we'll be around for a little bit. And again, if I'm sure questions are going to come up after you leave here, going, oh, should ask that. You can email any of us, and we'll be more than happy to answer your questions. And like I said, just refer to the book. We really tried to make these workbooks as user-friendly and simple as possible without missing any steps. And if there's any questions about any of this stuff, again, just get in touch with us. So again, thank you for coming out tonight. We appreciate it. We know, believe us, we know what it's like to work full day and have to come back and do something like this. But we're happy you guys came, and we'll be in touch. Thanks again.